just got a statement from the FBI related to a glove being tested for DNA they say appears to match the glove of the man on the front steps of the 84-year-old's house around the time she was taken. How big of a deal could this be when it comes to cracking a case that is entering its third week?
The moment the FBI confirmed that glove Dina recovered near Nancy Guthrie's home was heading straight into the National Criminal Database, the game changed. The silence cracked, and somewhere out there the masked figure who thought he vanished into the darkness likely felt the walls begin to close. Because this was no longer about grainy porch footage or speculation or anonymous tips flooding a hotline, this was about biological proof. About skin cells left behind in fabric, about a trace that doesn't lie, about a mistake that can't be undone. And when Dina enters the system, panic follows. For days, the mystery circled like a storm over Tucson, hovering over Nancy's quiet neighborhood, over her front porch where blood droplets were seen, over the chilling image of a masked man standing there in the early hours, armed, gloved, calculated, but perhaps not careful enough, because, while he may have covered his face, he could not cover the microscopic evidence that investigators now believe may expose him. And when the first statement dropped, it hit like thunder. That line did not just hint at progress, it suggested identity. It suggested proximity. It suggested that the glove found nearly 2 miles away was not random debris tossed by a search volunteer, but potentially the very glove worn by the masked figure captured on Nancy's porch. And if that glove truly belonged to him, then what he discarded in desperation may now become the very thing that exposes him. Because gloves are meant to conceal fingerprints, to prevent trace evidence, to create distance between skin and surface. But what if he forgot that sweat seeps, that cells transfer, that fabric holds secrets long after it's thrown into a roadside field? Investigators packaged that glove carefully, shipped it overnight to a private lab in Florida, and waited. And in that waiting period, speculation exploded, because everyone knows that once Dina is extracted, the real confrontation begins. A name may sit in a database already, dormant, tied to a prior arrest, a past mistake, a forgotten booking photo. And when that Dina profile enters the FBI system, it doesn't ask for permission, it searches.
The FBI received preliminary results on Saturday, February 14th, and now they're awaiting quality control and official confirmation today. This is Sunday, before putting unknown male profile into CODIS. Now, CODIS is the national database for the FBI. The process typically takes 24 hours from when the Bureau receives DNA.
That single phrase, putting the profile into CODIS, is where the panic truly begins. Because CODIS is not gossip, it is not rumor, it is not theory. It is the National Dina database holding profiles from convicted offenders, from those previously arrested, from individuals who once thought. Their run-in with federal authorities was behind them. And if the masked figure has ever been swabbed before, if he has ever sat in custody even briefly, then the match could be immediate, merciless, undeniable. And this is where the narrative shifts from mystery to countdown. Because once that profile enters the system, investigators do not have to guess about height, about build, about backpack brands. They can receive a name, a date of birth, an address, a record. And imagine being that individual, sitting somewhere, perhaps watching coverage, perhaps pretending calm, perhaps convincing himself that gloves were protection enough, only to realize that the very barrier meant to shield him may now be his downfall. That was the line that cut through everything, appears to match the gloves of the subject in the surveillance video. Not similar, not possibly related. Appears to match, which means investigators compared the style, the material, the visible texture, and the footage to the glove found discarded in a field. And if that connection holds, then the masked figure didn't just leave evidence, he abandoned it. And here is where tension thickens, because the suspect may have believed that distance equaled safety. 2 miles away.
This could potentially be a glimmer of hope in this case. You hear that line. The one with the DNA profile recovered is different and appears to match the gloves of the subject in the surveillance video. That is the line that stood out to us.
A field, a roadside, tossed casually. But distance means nothing when Dina travels farther than a suspect ever can. Because while he may run, the profile moves faster. Once entered, it scans every existing record in seconds, cross-referencing, aligning, identifying previous run-ins. That phrase alone opens doors because it implies history. It implies that this masked individual may not be some flawless mastermind executing a perfectly clean abduction, but someone who has stumbled before, someone whose name might already exist in federal records, someone who may have thought prior arrests were insignificant, unrelated, forgotten. But Dina does not forget. The database does not misplace, and if a match hits, the shift from unknown male to identified suspect becomes immediate. The narrative flips overnight. Surveillance footage transforms from eerie mystery to evidence tied to a person. And once identity attaches to image, the pressure multiplies, because then investigators move beyond gloves and into homes, vehicles, digital footprints, phone pings, purchase histories. The terrifying brilliance of Dina is that it doesn't rely on confession, and it doesn't rely on witnesses remembering faces. It relies on biology. And biology betrays even the careful. And there it is, the promise of an ID. Not speculation, not description, an ID. Now imagine the psychological spiral unfolding somewhere behind closed doors. Because once the suspect hears those words, interior of the glove, entered into CODIS, able to get an ID, he understands that this is no longer about whether someone saw his face. It is about whether his past already recorded him. It is about whether years ago, during some unrelated arrest, he provided the very sample that now threatens to expose him. It is about whether a swab he barely remembered could now light up the screen in an FBI lab. And that realization breeds panic, because once Dina matches, the next steps are swift. Search warrants, property seizures, comparisons between height-in footage and driver's license stats, analysis of purchases that Ozark Trail backpack sold only at Walmart, the Strategy brand hip holster available for $10, surveillance pulled from retail stores.
But once the FBI gets the official confirmation, they're then going to put the DNA profile into their national database. It's called CODIS, to see if anything comes back. Now, this database, it has DNA profiles from convicted offenders, people who were arrested or detained, people who have had previous run-ins with law enforcement. So,
credit card trails, cash transactions scrutinized. Every move he made before and after the night Nancy disappeared becomes a potential thread investigators can pull. What makes this case even more explosive is that the masked figure did not behave like a polished professional. He lingered. He stood on that porch. He disabled a camera. He wore distinctive gear. He may have believed that covering his face was enough, that anonymity was achieved through darkness and gloves and distance. But amateurs panic first. And when amateurs realize Dina is involved, mistakes multiply, because panic leads to movement. Movement leads to visibility. Visibility leads to error. If he thought discarding the gloves erased him, he underestimated forensic science. If he believed that releasing surveillance footage only endangered him visually, he may not have anticipated the biological trap tightening beneath the surface. And once you know your Dina might be in a federal database, you start to look over your shoulder. You start to imagine agents knocking. You start to wonder whether someone from your past, an old arrest, a forgotten detainment, has resurfaced. The national database is not just a tool. It is a silent alarm waiting to activate. And the most chilling part is this: if the Dina does not match anyone in the system, it does not disappear. It remains stored. It waits. It sits ready in case the suspect is arrested in the future for something unrelated. One mistake down the line, one traffic stop that escalates, one federal charge years from now, and the stored glove Dina could suddenly connect back to Nancy's disappearance. There is no expiration date on evidence like this, so whether the match comes instantly or lingers in suspense, the masked individual is no longer invisible. He is cataloged. He is coded. He is potentially seconds away from identification. And somewhere out there, the realization may already be setting in, that the gloves meant to protect him may have just sealed his fate. The terrifying truth about Dina is not just that it exposes who you are, it exposes where you've been, what you've touched, and how careless you truly were in the moments when you believed nobody was watching. And somewhere, perhaps in a quiet apartment, perhaps in a vehicle parked too long in one place, perhaps in a house where curtains stay drawn tighter than usual, the realization may already be sinking in that the glove was not just lost, it was left behind, abandoned in a moment of urgency, in a moment when the adrenaline of escape outweighed the logic of concealment. Because criminals often believe the danger ends when they leave the scene, when distance replaces proximity, when silence replaces confrontation. But what they don't realize is that the real pursuit begins after they disappear, when forensic teams start reconstructing movements, when analysts start comparing microscopic evidence, when databases begin searching for matches that don't rely rely on eyewitness memory, but on biological certainty. And the most chilling detail is that investigators did not recover just any glove. They recovered one that appeared to match the exact type worn by the masked figure captured. Outside Nancy Guthrie's home, a figure who stood there long enough to be recorded, long enough to reveal patterns in behavior, long enough to expose himself to surveillance that he may not have even noticed until it was too late. Because footage does not forget, and neither does Dina. The masked individual came prepared, or at least he thought he did. He wore gloves. He wore a backpack. He carried equipment. He approached under the cover of darkness. Every visible decision suggested calculation, but the invisible mistake was already unfolding. Sweat, pressure, friction, all of it transfers trace biological material into the interior of gloves, embedding identity into fabric. And once that glove was removed and discarded, it stopped being protection and became evidence. And what makes this even more devastating for the suspect is the timeline itself, because investigators did not delay. They moved quickly. They secured the glove. They shipped it to a lab. They extracted the Dina. And they prepared to enter it into the national database, the very place where past mistakes wait patiently to resurface. That database is not passive. It is constantly ready, constantly able to compare profiles against thousands upon thousands of records. Every individual arrested federally leaves behind a biological record, a digital fingerprint of their existence within the justice system. And if the masked individual has ever been processed before, if his Dina was ever taken even once, then the connection could happen without warning. Imagine the moment that connection appears on a screen inside a federal lab, a name aligning with the unknown profile extracted from the glove. In that instant, the masked figure stops being anonymous. He becomes someone investigators can find, someone they can track, someone they can confront, and confrontation changes everything. Because once identity is known, the investigation shifts from searching to confirming. Agents begin building timelines. They examine where that person was on the night Nancy disappeared. They analyze whether his physical description aligns with the surveillance footage. They examine purchases, locations, movements. They begin to close the circle. And panic feeds mistakes. Panic makes people destroy evidence, but destruction itself leaves evidence. Panic makes people flee, but fleeing creates trails. Panic makes people act differently, behave unusually, draw attention where none existed before. What investigators understand, and what the suspect may now fear, is that amateur criminals rarely escape their own anxiety. They begin to look behind them. They begin to question every sound, every knock, every unexpected interaction. They begin to imagine exposure before it even arrives, because Dina does not negotiate. It does not forget. It does not weaken over time. And the glove was only the beginning. The footage already revealed details that investigators can connect once identity is confirmed. The backpack worn by the suspect was identified as a specific model sold at Walmart, narrowing the pool of possible buyers. The holster visible in the footage was not some rare tactical gear, but a cheap, widely available product, meaning it could be traced through purchase records, surveillance footage, or eyewitness accounts. Every detail that once seemed insignificant now becomes part of a larger web, a web tightening slowly but relentlessly. And the suspect may already know this. He may know that investigators are not just relying on the glove, but on everything surrounding it: the footage, the location where the glove was found, the path between Nancy's home and that field, the possibility that cameras captured him along the way. Because modern investigations do not operate in isolation. They combine physical evidence with digital evidence, surveillance with forensic science, public tips with internal analysis. And once Dina enters the system, it becomes the anchor point around which everything else can be organized. The psychological pressure of that reality cannot be overstated. Because uncertainty itself becomes punishment. Not knowing whether the Dina has already matched. Not knowing whether investigators already know the name. Not knowing whether surveillance is already underway. That uncertainty creates tension. And tension creates cracks. Cracks that investigators know how to exploit. Because suspects under pressure change patterns. They may contact people they shouldn't. They may revisit locations they shouldn't. They may dispose of items they should have left untouched. And every one of those actions creates new evidence. Meanwhile, the public image of the masked figure has transformed. No longer just an anonymous silhouette, he has become a symbol of looming exposure, a figure whose anonymity is hanging by a thread woven from his own biological material. And the most devastating truth is this: even if the match does not happen immediately, the Dina remains stored. It It waits. It persists. It exists as a permanent reference point, meaning the suspect is never truly safe. Because even years later, a future arrest could trigger the match retroactively. A minor charge, a routine processing, a swab taken without connection to Nancy's case could suddenly align with the glove Dina stored in the system. And in that moment, time collapses. The past resurfaces. The mask falls, which means the suspect is not just running from investigators. He is running from his own biology, running from evidence he cannot erase, running from a database that never sleeps, running from the moment his identity appears on a screen inside a federal lab and transforms him from unknown male to named suspect. And that moment may already be closer than he realizes. Because the glove was never just a glove. It was a confession waiting to be decoded. And now, with the FBI database searching relentlessly, with analysts examining every detail, with investigators closing in piece by piece, the masked figure who once believed he vanished into the darkness may soon face the terrifying reality that he never truly disappeared at all. He only delayed the inevitable exposure written into his Dina the moment he slipped off those gloves and walked away.